Hello, this is a Magblade, Magica Nightblade build video. I did group tests last night in Mother Sorrow and Burning Spellweave and Zons and hit 64k group tests. Accidentally had the lever mundus on, so probably would have been a little bit higher. So this is a build that can hit hard. I'm not necessarily going to do a solo DPS rotation just to teach you how to do it. Not really flexing the E-pin, you know. Okay, so first of all, for this, the sets that Magblades are usually in are either Master Architect and Mother's Sorrow, which is kind of your buffing set for other group members. There usually is 2 or 3 in a group that will be wearing that to give Major Slayer. Okay, so the Major Slayer comes with the when an ulti is used. So if you were to do that, then you would definitely be using the Soul Harvest ulti, because the cost is only 7 versus 250 for the Destro ulti. Okay, so another setup that you will sometimes use, so I usually have 2 to 3 bloodthirsty on, just depends on the fight. You'll want to go over what your raid leader's preference is. If the fights have kind of long executes, then you'll want to put on some more bloodthirsty. The reason why you'd want to use more arcane is if it's a long fight, like before execute, or you find yourself running out of magica, because it does give you like an extra like 800 or more, depends on if you've golded out your jewelry magica. So I just have a lot of options, so I can switch them out when I need to. I do just have the one neck, so I always keep that bloodthirsty, but you can do as you'd wish. So usually 2 or 3 bloodthirsty on Magblades, sometimes 1. It just really depends on what the needs of your group are and the raid leader. So let's go over monster sets first. So Zons is a good damage set, but it's only really useful if you're going to be close up. So you can only be within 8 meters of your target. It does a lot of damage if that's the case. If you're in a fight where you can't really be that close, then you'll want to switch out. So this is good to use really when you're in Master Architect too, because you're going to be close up to do the Soul Harvest ulti anyway, since it is not a ranged ulti. Okay, so other sets that you can use are Grothdar. This is good in like a VMA or add heavy fights. It's a little bit difficult not on PC, so just on console, to be able to switch out your monster sets, because someone's always attacking something and you're like in half a monster set or half another set or whatnot. So you really have to be coordinated and say, okay, we're changing, I'll do it really fast, and then go if you need to do that. So this one, I usually put the magica enchants on all of them. I just happen to have had health on this because that's probably how it dropped, or I stuck it on there to get a tiny bit more health for something. I just kind of pulled these out because I switch monster sets between characters. Okay, so you can do that for the ads. Another nice one is Ice Heart. So the reason why this is nice is because you don't have to really use your shield as much. The shields now have more resistances, but they don't cover as much of your health. So this is nice to give you an extra damage shield. It's also for within enemies within 5 meters of you. You can do a little bit of damage to them. So this is really something that you want to do if you're trying to stay alive and you have high enough DPS already in your group. You don't have to worry as much about the extra. Another one that you can do is Valken Scoria. Okay, so this is something you'll use if you want to use a little bit more health, because the one piece you can see is that bonus, and it is good for ranged. So it'll shoot it to like any of the it could shoot it to any enemy you're damaging, and then it hurts the enemies within 5 meters. So that can also be a good one. Some people use Velorgs. I haven't tried it out yet. This could probably be good if you're a master architect. If you're using your ultimate ability, it'll give you more weapon and spell damage. I just haven't tried it out yet. I don't think I have a shoulder piece. Okay, so other options for monster sets are usually one pieces, and that usually comes into play in somewhere like VAS hard mode or whatnot. So that's one reason some groups like to have you do max magica, like 2 max magica sets. So this is, you'll notice the one piece is that of this. And then there's also Doma House, which does max mag and stam. So you could do one with that and one with Grothdar. Other groups like you to run a little bit more health and mix that with a max mag or stam. Other groups also like you to do crit sets. So you can mix an Ice Heart with a Zon and do more spell crit. So there's different options for that as well. You'll definitely want to go 5 light on the body and then a medium and a heavy on the monster set, so you can get the Undaunted passive. Okay, so other sets that you can use, you definitely want to keep Mother Sorrow on your front bar, and that's because you want it to crit on that bar. So if you'll notice the 4 and 5 piece, they have more crit, so you'll want that on your abilities on your front bar. You should be spending the majority of time on your front bar anyway. Okay, so your enchant should always go down faster on your front bar than on your back bar. If not, then you're spending way too much time on your back bar. You're wasting magica, you're wasting your DPS. Okay, so on the back bar, you'll definitely want to put the Maelstrom Inferno. If you don't have that, I suppose you could use that like Burning Spellweave back there, or you can put Burning Spellweave on both bars. I just happen to have it. So usually on the Maelstrom Inferno, you're going to want infused on both of your staffs. Your front bar you're going to want to do flame, because that does more damage. The back, you're going to want to do weapon damage. If you're having trouble sustaining, you can switch it out for a absorb magica, but sometimes you can remedy that by just throwing on an arcane ring. And if you need to throw on one glyph on your jewelry as mag recovery, you can. It's just better to do it on your staff, because that spell damage is always active on your jewelry, whereas on your staff, this is only active for 5 seconds on the spell damage. Okay, so that's why you'd want to switch those out that way. Another setup that for the Maelstrom Inferno, you can have, if you have more than one. I just don't happen to have one because I can't get one to drop for the life of me. You'll want to have one of your, have like shock as one of them if you want, and you can also do your prismatic enchant on your back bar too. Okay. Because the blockade's always down, so it procs the enchant more, which is why you want to stick it on the back bar. I don't have that, so I happen to have mine on my front bar because I spend a lot of time on my front bar doing light attacks, so the uptime's almost as good, it's just not optimal. So that's what that enchant is on there. I also have a shock damage, just because. And a lightning staff if I ever need that for any reason. Okay, so I also have Spell Strategist. Since I got this, there's been some talk about how it's not really that useful, because most fights you rely on a lot of cleave damage. You don't have that as much with a Magblade, because you only, you don't have like you have your twisting path and your blockade, but you're kind of a lot of single target. Okay, so you want to, if you do this, this is mostly just for whatever you're attacking, the target you're attacking. It puts over spell damage on the marked target. Okay, so it only does one at a time. So this is usually why you don't pair it, but if you were to do that, you would put Spell Strategist on your front bar, and then you would put, you put Spell Strategist on some of your body, but then you'll also put you'll put Mother Sorrow on your body. You'll have 5 pieces on your body on that. So just however you can work that out. I don't necessarily recommend it. You may have 1 or 2 in a group, that have primary jobs of focusing the bosses or whatnot, and that might be a good setup for that, but general rule, you don't really use that. So the main sets that you will do are Mother's Sorrow front bar only, so you don't have it proccing on your back bar, and you mix that with Master Architect, like I said, for the Minor Slayer and the Major Slayer, or you would mix it with Burning Spellweave. I need to gold out these pieces. I just haven't done that yet. I flip stuff between other tunes. Okay, so the set on here, I just don't happen to have gold, but you want to gold it out because it gives you more mundus stone effects and enchants. Okay, so another thing you could use while keeping Mother's Sorrow on the front bar is Sioria. So this is only really useful if you're going to be able to hold still. So let's say this is a good like dummy practicing set, but there aren't going to be too many trial situations where you would use it, just because you have to move out of like AoEs and move around and attack different things. So it's not generally used as much, but it does give you the highest DPS, because if you stand in that circle, then you will see the boon active for 5 seconds and it stacks your spell damage, and it can give you up to 20 stacks. So that gives you a lot more. I did test with spell strat and Mother's Sorrow versus Sioria and Mother's Sorrow and the difference was about 2k on my parses, more so for the Sioria. So while those may get higher on as DPS solo, then they're not really that as useful in trials because of the other things. So your two real options are really Mother's Sorrow and Master Architect, or if you're damaged, Mother's Sorrow and Burning Spellweave. Okay, so there's a lot of set options for Magblade, and you really want to go with what your raid leader tells you to do. But those are the reasons that I've heard for those. Okay, so as far as your food, you're going to want to, majority of the time, use Witch Mother's Potent Brew. You can also, if you're one of those rich people, use the Clockwork Citrus Fillet. I don't find that much of a difference for my parses, so I don't tend to stock it as much, but that would definitely be if you want to min-max, so just get the most out of it. Sometimes you'll want to use a tri-stat, just rarely. Other times you'll want to sometimes use the bi-stat food, like in a place like VCR where you need more health or more max magica. But generally you'll stick with mag recovery food. Okay, so that's it for the sets as far as skills go. This is front bar for me. So the front bar is where you're going to want to put your execute, which is your impale. Okay, so this deals 300% more damage under 25% health. So when you start executing, things die super fast. And if you look at your bloodthirsty jewelry, then you'll notice that enemies under 25% get another 10% bonus, which is why bloodthirsty is really good on Magblades. Okay, so you'll want to keep your spammable, which is what you use in between light attacks and when you're waiting for your other skills to wear off. So even though this has a duration of 2 seconds, you'd still do light attack weaving with it. So I guess you could technically do 1 LE weapon and then 2 light attacks, but that just gets really cumbersome and you'll probably miss out a little bit. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. Cripple is something you generally want to keep on. It's your timer that you really use to go back and apply your dots on your back bar. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily do a huge amount of damage because it's 14,000 over 8 seconds. It also immobilizes them, which can be a pain when the tanks are trying to chain adds or whatnot. But it does slow them. You do get major expedition, so when they're snared, which is kind of nice to move around faster. You can only have 1 active at a time, so you can't put it on multiple players. So the times you would switch this out would be for if you're going through the portals in VCR, you'll want to switch it out for like Dark Cloak, so you can get a heal. Or if you're in VAS and VAS hard mode, you're going to want to switch it out for Swallow Soul, because that'll be a little bit of a heal, and since Olms gets protected so much by the protectors, you can lose out on your damage from this, just kind of making it a wasted skill. Okay, so front bar, you're going to want to keep inner light on, so it increases your max magica and your spell crit. Okay, so when you're on your front bar, I guess technically you don't need spell crit in your spell power pots, but you will need it on your back bar. You might as well still use spell power pots. Okay, so Merciless Resolve. This has a 20-second duration. So this is instant. This one 2 seconds. This lasts for 8 seconds, which is the same as your blockade. This one lasts for 20. So if you've heard of bow procs, those are when you have enough light attacks. So if you hit 5 light or heavy attacks, then it changes into what looks like a bow. So it turns the skill to purple, and you can hit that real quick. And it costs a little bit to hit it, not as much, and it deals a lot of magic damage. So you definitely want to keep that up. You want to shoot for at least 2 bow procs, 3 if you can. Right, so that's something to work towards. So if you can get 2 in there, that's definitely what you want to do. If you can get 3 before 20 seconds, that's awesome as well. You just have to get familiar with your tune and your parse. So you're going to want to keep the Fiery Rage, which is the Destruction Staff Ultimate, on your front bar, because you don't want to put it on your back because you have blockade back there. Okay, so the reason is you want to have passives from the Destruction Staff line on both of your bars. Okay, so you'll see you want the heavy attacks to deal more, not like you're going to do it that much. But you ignore spell resistance, you have a chance to apply the burning, you have a chance, you do more damage with single target abilities, which you have a lot of as a Magblade, and when you kill an enemy, you restore magica. So you want to have that available on both bars, okay? If you were to be running, let's say, a Perfected Inferno, Perfected Asylum Inferno, you can switch out Crushing Shock here if you're like an Interrupter or something. Isn't generally used, but you would use it like topside Vet Hellraw. So there are certain situations with that. If you do have that, then you can put like, you might want to do like a setup with like Willpower Jewelry and Burning Spellwave and Perfected Inferno and the Maelstrom Inferno back bar. So if you happen to do that, there are other setups if you're going to be a VAS Interrupter that's generally left to Sorks, but some groups do Magblades, and there's a different setup for that altogether, and you'd want to check with your raid lead to see what they want you to do on that. Okay, so back on the back bar here, we have siphoning attacks. Because of the hit to sustain on Magblades, especially since they put a cost on the spectral bow and increase costs of other things, you're going to want to keep this up. So this is the same duration as your Merciless Resolve. You do have timer, it shows up on the bottom of your screen that you can watch, or you can just start to get the hang of how much 20 seconds is. You can also see when you get the mag boost at the end of the skill. You'll see your mag pop up a bit, okay? And then you can reapply it. That when you go back to your back bar, you're not going to want to switch off of your front bar to go do that and then go back, because you're missing out on a couple light attacks, which is a lot of damage, okay? So what's nice about this is it restores magica when you first cast it, and then a lot at the end. So it also restores health, which can be helpful as well too. Because your healer can't always be on you every second. The only reason I have Elemental Drain on right now is because to show you how to solo test. Otherwise, you're going to keep your Light Armor Shield on here. Okay, so I use Dampen Magica just because there's no real reason to use the Harness Magica morph. It does give you back a little bit of magica if you're hit with a magica ability while it is cast, but you'll find that you don't really shield that much. Or I don't anyway, so there's no real use to it to having the other morph. So when you have this one, the shield strength is higher. Okay. So Blockade of Fire, you'll notice is 8 seconds is the same duration as your cripple. So that's why I use your cripple to time, because it shows up on your bar at top. So you can see that when I hit this, look at the top, it went down to 7 seconds. Okay. Because it counts down to 0 as one of the seconds. So once you get down to, let's say 1 or 0, you flap and then you hit your blockade again. And it has the same duration, but it doesn't really give you a specific buff that you can track. Okay, so that's why you use cripple to time. Alright, so you'll want to use channeled acceleration. This lasts for 36 seconds. Okay, so you can see when you do cast this one, it takes a little bit of time to cast, okay? You can see it gives you the minor expedition buff at the bottom, and it gives you that other buff, which looks like a giant fist. So that's how you'll know when that one is running out. You reapply it again, gives you the expedition for a little bit, and then it has that. So that's when you'll know then that runs out. When you're doing a parse on a 3 mil dummy, you're only going to do it at the beginning. When you're doing it on a 6 mil or a group test dummy, you're going to be doing it again about halfway through. You don't have to reapply it on cooldown, just because it does waste a little bit of time because it takes so long to cast it. When you're in a trial, I would suggest reapplying it when you're not in the middle of damaging things. So let's say you're kiting the Storm of Heavens in VAS, you can reapply it then. If there's not a protector near you, or if you're too far away in the boss or whatnot, or if you're just like in a trial and there's little, as you're running to the next area of ads, then you reapply it as you run over. Okay, so what this does is it gives you minor force, right, which increases your crit damage, which is why you like to use it, because you have high crit as Magblade. The last thing, a skill to use, is Twisting Path, and that lasts 11.5 seconds. So what that means is you don't have a completely static rotation, which means that when you do your rotation, that you don't apply it's all the skills in an order. So this one's going to be offset a little bit. And the way I offset this is the first time I go through my rotation, I hit blockade and then twisting. All right. Well, of course, first you'll hit cripple for your timer and then do blockade and twisting. The next time I go through, I'm going to hit blockade, switch back, do a couple spammables, hit my bow proc, come back, hit my twisting path, go back, do a couple spammables, and if your timer's up on Merciless Resolve, then hit back, and then you'll go back and you'll just hit blockade and go through all your spammables until cripple's running out again, and then reapply it. So it's every 3. So the first time is blockade and twisting, the second time is blockade, spam, twisting, spam, and the third would be just blockade. So that kind of makes it so the 11.5 seconds lasts longer. If you recast it more often, you're just going to be using more magica more often. As you can see, the cost is pretty high. Okay, and it's just not necessary to do it as often. So Soul Harvest is an ulti that, while slotted, gives you more ultimate, which is why you keep it slotted even if you're not using it. If you're not in MA, you're going to be using the Destro ulti. If you are in MA, you'll use the Soul Harvest. Some groups in VAS do like to use the Destro ulti even when they're using MA. And that's just on your raid leader preference, so please always go to what they tell you to do. Okay, so any other skills that you might use would be Dark Cloak, and that would be in VCR when you're running portals. And that's because you can use that instead of cripple, because you're going to be going up and down a lot. The crystals don't last that long. You don't really need to throw it on the crystals if that's your main job. And this will give you a heal, so you can keep Twisting Path on for your expedition and for your damage, because Refreshing Path no longer does damage, it just says heals. And if you have to put that on, that's a DPS loss. Okay, so that's when you would use that one. And you can use Swallow Soul as a replacement in VAS for cripple. So the reason you'd use that is it does more damage than the other morph, and it will heal yourself. The other morph also heals your friends, but if they are using it as well, that doesn't matter. Okay, there's another option is in VCR. You can use this instead of Elemental Weapon, which is your spammable, as your spammable. And that will keep you healed while still doing an adequate amount of damage. Okay, and we went over Crushing Shock, and I think that's pretty much all the skills. There's not a huge amount of skills that you really will flex out. So right now is your standard bar setup. Front bar, back bar. Just we'll switch out shields for what's on the triangle right now, which is Elemental Drain. Okay, so let me go over the CP. This is the CP I'm using. The green is mostly for your playstyle. I like to reduce the cost of break free because I don't have a huge amount of stamina. You'll see it's about 10k. Okay, so right now you can see I'm using Witch Mother's Brew and I'm a stage 4 vampire. There's no real need to be a stage 4 vampire. I just haven't used the Bloody Mara. I like to wait until I go into a trial so I can reduce it to 3. 3 is where you really get the undeath passive and the regen, and there's a bit more fire damage, but as long as you don't stand in the stupid, you're fine. You never really need to go down to 2. Okay, so staying at 3 is perfectly fine. You can stay at 4 too if you're lazy. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so you'll see on here what my mag recovery is. I'm in right now MA and Mother of Sorrow. Okay, and that is my back bar. And that's what it is on the front bar. So you'll see there are some slight differences. The spell crit on this bar is 72. Okay, and it's 47 on the back bar, which is why you want to keep your crit procking on your front bar with the Mother of Sorrow. Right, you're not going to get much spell resistance, but you're going to get that more from your support, which is their job. Okay, so back to the champion points. I like to throw some in tenacity for in case I ever do need to do a heavy attack. I get a lot back from it, which you will find you will need sometimes, depending on how good your healer is at throwing out orbs. Keep my mag recovery high. And I do a little bit of roll dodging into Magblade and some blocking, so that's why I have some points in there. So this is the blue, it's the damage pretty much. This is what you'll find most important. Okay, so I have my crit damage and crit healing up at 56. There may be some slight variations on this. There are slightly different builds. This is just what I happen to use. Elemental Expert for the flame damage, and that's my spell erosion. You can go a little bit lower or higher depending on your group composition. Put some into Staff Expert and a lot into Master at Arms because you do a lot of light attacks, and Thaumaturge because you have your blockade and your twisting. So this is set up right now, I think, for VAS. So the red CP changes based on the trial that you're running. If you do need that, let me know and I can link a picture of a couple different options for the CP. Okay, so we're going to go over rotation. And so what you do in your general rotation might be slightly different from what you do on a dummy, okay? And I only say that because when you're doing a dummy, you're going to need to apply your own elemental drain, which is usually what healers will apply for you. If you don't, you're not going to get enough magic back because this applies magic steal and the breach. So when you do test, you're going to want to make sure that you test in the thief. Okay, it may give you a slightly lower than using the lover, but you're not going to be using lover in trials unless you're, like, let's say in VAS and there isn't good outcost uptime and you don't have a lot in the spell penetration and you just want to, your raid leader tells you to use lover. So there's no point in using it except to potentially simulate what you get in a group test. But more often than not, I see people forget to switch and then they have bad group test parses or have it in the trial. So you want to pretty much keep the thief on, okay? So make sure you have that on. So what you're going to do, just so you know about practicing parses, for Magblades, they have a passive that they regen ulti when you use a potion. So when you do your parse, or anytime you apply an ultimate at all, you're going to want to wait to use your potion until after you use the ultimate. Okay, so if you get enough orbs from the healers, then you won't need to worry too much about running out of magica. If you run out, you can always throw that absorb magica on your back bar, okay? And you can switch it out with the undead one when you need to. So for doing solo parses, you'll want to usually start by hitting your Merciless Resolve, which is my R1. And then you'll want to hit your siphoning, okay? Because then you'll get your magica back. You'll want to hit the LA drain. And then last you'll want to hit the channel focus because you want that to last as long as possible. When you do your parses, you'll want to make sure that you heavy attack or light attack first to generate your Destruction Staff ultimate. So when you do parses on the Magblade, you're going to want to drop your, after you do those initial steps I told you, you're going to want to drop your blockade, or excuse me, not your blockade, your Destruction Staff ultimate. and then hit your potion. Okay, and then once you do that, you'll go right into hitting your cripple first, as that's your timer. Then you'll switch to your back bar, you'll lay down your blockade, always put a light attack in between everything, and then you'll lay down your twisting path, and then you'll switch back, and you'll see our cripple timer's out, just because I'm explaining that, and then you'll light attack, weave, however many times you need to, and then you'll hit that. If this timer's out, you'll hit that again, okay, and you can make it so the timer shows up on your screen, or you can make it off. So you're going to want to update that in options in the combat. Okay, so that's pretty much what your rotation is. I'll just do one real quick that's not a full, but just to show you what they are. All right, so let's say I have this up already. I have this on, I have my siphoning on, I have my channel focus on. Okay, so I'm going to put this down. And you can see that's about how fast you want to hit it, and you'll see my cripple's out. So I want to go back, and you'll see my cripple's out again, and this is my third one. So then I'm on the front bar longer because I didn't hit twisting that time. So that's about what they are. It's about what your rotation is. I know that might be a little bit too fast, so I'll show you again slower when I get some of my magica back. This is the 6 mil dummy, so this is what you really want to work up to after you've gotten your rotation down on the 3. You oftentimes can't sustain on this, so you may need a healer to throw an orb for you from time to time to actually test. Okay, so let's go over our start again. So I'm starting my parse. I'm going to hit LA Drain, Siphoning, Merciless, and always last channel focus. You can do the other ones as you want. Then I'm going to throw down this. I would hit a potion, and light attack, and then cripple, and light attack, blockade, light attack, twisting, switch back, LE weapon, light attack, LE weapon, light attack, proc the bow, hit the cripple, go back. I'm doing this slower on purpose. You can reapply that if you need to. Okay, and now I would be on my third, and you want to watch the timer at the top. The one on the top right is when your LE drain, okay? And then you'll see the siphoning on the bottom. All right, and then when you get to execute, which is 25%, you're going to want to still keep up your merciless, but not actually use your bow proc, okay? Because the execute will do more. So what you're going to want to keep down is your blockade, and then you're going to just spam impale with light attacks in between. And then you'll want to go, even you're not using a cripple for timer, so about every 6 or 7 of the impales, you'll want to go back and hit your blockade again. You can see on the ground when the blockade runs out. Okay, so that was just really slow, which is why the DPS is lower on that, but that's generally what it is. So one more thing about your ulti. So after you do the initial one, that is the Destro Staff ulti, you're going to want to use the Soul Harvest, and you'll, let me show you what the Soul Harvest does, okay? So it increases your damage against them by 20% for 6 seconds. This is why this is good for practicing your DPS parse, because it's the ulti's cheap and it keeps your damage up, okay? So that's why you would use it. You only want to use this when you're going to be on your front bar a lot. So I wouldn't necessarily use it on the one where you're doing this one, where you're going down, going here, doing 2 of those, going back, doing 2 more of these. I wouldn't use it there because you're not going to be on your front bar, which is where most of your damage is. I would use it on the one where you're gonna just do these together and then stay on your front bar for several, and you use it right before you switch over. So make sure your elemental drain's still on, make sure that's on. So just kind of try and stagger those, play with it. Or you can use it on the one where you're just doing the blockade, okay? And it's pretty fast, and I'm going a little bit slow with the weaves, okay? But what you want to make sure that you do with parses is that your light attacks always land. See how that one didn't land? You have to find your speed that works for you and for your connection and for your lag and all that, so you cannot miss any light attacks. Always do a light attack in between every skill. Okay, so I think that's about it for the setup and how to DPS. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask me. I can answer your questions on there, or I can always make another video if you need.